2016 Dorothy Hill Award honours the contribution of the late Professor Dorothy Hill, and former President, to Australian earth science and her work in opening up tertiary science education to women. The recipient of the Dorothy Hill Award in 2016 is Dr. Andrea Taschetto.
Dr. Taschetto is internationally recognized as a leader in the field of climate system science. She has made major contributions to our understanding of large-scale oceanographic atmospheric phenomena in the tropical, Pacific, and Indian Oceans and their subsequent impact on regional climate. In particular, based upon her research findings, Dr. Taschetto is widely considered as a leader in the development of our understanding about regional climate dynamics and global modes of climate variability, including the El Nino-Modoki phenomenon. Her research has significantly and substantially advanced our understanding of the role of the oceans on regional climate variability from seasonal to multi-decadal timescales and future projections. For these and other high-impact achievements, Dr. Taschetto has made a major contribution both within and beyond her field. Dr. Taschetto, congratulations. Now I invite you to speak to us about exploring the links between the tropical oceans and Australian climate.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. Thanks, Academy, for the Oates Award. When I first came from Brazil to this country 10 years ago, I couldn't imagine that one day I would be here sharing this research with you all. Thank you. Australia and South America have different climates, but they also have something in common. They are both affected by variations in ocean temperature in the Pacific, which is the main topic of my research. Australian climate is unique. It's one of the driest continents on Earth, but it also has high variations in rainfall. This can be seen in this animation of the seasonal mean rainfall since the 1900s. As you can see, there is extensive periods of droughts as the one called as the World War II droughts in the 40s, intercalated by wet periods as the one coming up as in 1974 called as the Big Wet, where the whole of Australia was pretty much wet. More recently, we had another event, wet event that happened in 2010, 2011, where there was the Queensland, responsible for the Queensland floods. Most of those extreme rainfall events have been associated with the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO. Australia lies in the heart of the Walker circulation, which drives ENSO. In normal circumstances, the tropical winds blows across the Pacific, piling up warm waters in the west side and producing a lot of convection and rain. During a La Niña event, the trade winds intensify and Australia sees increased chances of rain. During an El Niño event, on the other hand, the tropical winds weakens or sometimes reverse, allowing the warm waters to travel eastward and pushing away the convection center with it. So Australia sees a reduced chances of rain in 2/3 of the continent. So, oops. Okay, in 1982, we had a strong El Niño, which is not here, but it was a very strong El Niño event. And this was associated with a strong drought in more than half of the continent. But curiously, in 1997, where El Niño was one of the strongest, was the strongest on record, Australia only saw a minor effect on rainfall. And this was quite similar to the El Niño event that happened last year, that now it's in final stages now. Also interesting was another event that occurred in 2002, when Australia suffered one of the worst short-term droughts in history, But this El Nino was very weak, and the temperatures, the warming was located in the Central Pacific instead. So every El Nino is different, and I wondered why and how El Nino, the different types of El Nino impact Australian rainfall. So this particular event in 2002 was called by Japanese scientists as El Nino Modoki. Modoki is a Japanese word meaning the same but different. This event is characterized by warm temperatures in the Central Pacific, flanked by colder temperatures in both sides of the equator. What I found out is that Modokis tend to impact Australian rainfall differently. While traditional El Niños tend to dry the eastern half of Australia in September, October, and November, Modokis are generally associated with dry conditions in the northwest of Australia, particularly strong during autumn time. I also found out that this has a different impact over the monsoon season. While normal El Niños, traditional El Niños tends to dry the northern areas of Australia and causing a weakened monsoon, El Niño Modoki dries in December and March, but also causes wet conditions in January and February. This is very interesting because Modoki then is associated with a shorter but more intense monsoon season over northwest of Australia. So why does this happen? To answer this, I used experiments in global climate models where I artificially changed the location of this warming across the Pacific. And I discovered that the atmosphere responds most strongly when this warming is located around the dateline. When this happens, the seasonal migration of the convective zones interacts with this extra warming from Modokis, increasing the convective activity. And I demonstrated that this happens via a mechanism discovered in 1980 by the Australian meteorologist and oceanographer Adrian Gill. But the Pacific is not the only ocean that affects Australian rainfall. Actually, during the development stage of El Nino, the Indian Ocean sees colder temperatures in the eastern side and warmer in the west in a pattern called as the Indian Ocean Dipole. This Indian Ocean Dipole peaks in springtime, and then later in the year it evolves to a basin-wide warming that peaks in March, April, May, when El Nino is dissipating. Well, it turns out that this Indian Ocean base-wide warming also affects Australian rainfall. In particular, it tends to prolong and enhance the dry conditions initiated by a normal El Nino conditions. And in a similar way to the Indian Ocean warming, we know that the tropical North Atlantic also warms after an El Nino event. So more recently, it has been discovered that not only ENSO affects the Indian Ocean and the Pacific and the Atlantic, but also the Atlantic and the Indian Oceans feed back into the Pacific, changing the characteristics of the El Nino Southern Oscillation. And this is a new topic of research in climate sciences with many open questions. A challenge for future research is to understand how those ocean basins interact with each other, how those interactions affect weather in Australia, and how those relationships will change in the future with global warming. I'd like to finish by thanking all the support that I've been having from the University of New South Wales and the ARC, the NCI, and the Center of Excellence for Climate System Science, and also my collaborators at the Climate Change Research Center and the colleagues who nominated me for this award. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? We are running a little bit late, and then I can see a lot of people are feeling hungry as well. A quick question. Okay, so the Indian Ocean is now really covering both the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere, where we've got two different seasons. And do you think that that has also an impact in terms of the way things are affecting us?
Yes, that's an interesting question. Yes, the Indian Ocean warming affects Australian rainfall mostly March, April, May by enhancing those effects from the Pacific, but also has a strong impact on climate of South Asia in another season.
Thank you.